Okay, we're going to get started. I want to welcome all of you this evening to our general meeting here of September 27th here in the District of Akwesasne. We'll call our meeting to order. We have acceptance of the agenda, the rules of order, follow-ups of the last meeting of August 30th, presentation by the Akwesasne Youth Council, which is the introduction. We have a presentation on the Akwesasne Dynasty Bank Lane. We are going to remove the proposed natural gas expansion on Akwesasne that's going to be coming off tonight's agenda. We'll have an update from Akwesasne, as well as we'll provide an update on the ongoing development of cannabis regulations for the territory. We'll take business from the floor. And then we have one resolution that we need to add on here, which is a resolution accepting the petition results, which was presented at the last general meeting. And then we have a resolution for the general meeting minutes of August 30th, with announcements and then adjournment. So, with that, could I have a mover to accept? Joel, second by Tim. All in favor? All right, it's carried. So I'll ask for a moment of silence and observation of the members that we've lost over the last month since the last general meeting. All right, thank you. And on behalf of council, we extend our deepest condolences to those affected by loss in the last month. So we just have tonight one member who is not here today, and that is District Chief Dennis Chosey, who is out. So the rules of order. So our meeting tonight starts at approximately 6 p.m., goes to about 8 p.m., at which we will continue on if the discussion and presentation warrants. Personal issues will not be dealt with in our public forum here at the general meeting. Personal issues will be dealt with on a one-to-one basis, individually between either members of council or myself, and we'll make an appointment to follow up on those issues. If you have any questions during tonight, then please ask that you raise your hand, and I will acknowledge when it is your turn to speak. We also ask that you keep your questions relevant to the presentation or the discussion that's happening. We do have a time at the end of the agenda for business from the floor where we can talk about issues at Ross. Also, issues that cannot be addressed here, that we can't answer, or that follow-up will be noted, and then we'll report it back at next month's general meeting. As well, the meetings are recorded, so we do have a camera here that only captures the front of the room here. We ask that you please not use names of MCA employees or other people in the audience, just so they're not identified. If you can use names of the members of council, but please don't identify individuals who work for the organization or who are not here. All right, so that's it for our rules of order. We do have your packages here. All of this information is in your packages at the back of the room as you come in. So follow up from the last general meeting of August 30th. There was a request for council from the community to provide council's phone numbers and emails. That has been provided to all of you in those packages. As well, at any time you can call our offices and we'll provide that to you if needed. There was a request that was made at the last general meeting regarding the Akwesasne Heating Assistance Program, so I will turn that over to Tim Thompson, who will provide us with an update.
So at the Akwesasne district meeting and at the general meeting, there were some elders that had come forward and asked for increase in the heating assistance. So we took that back to council, asked council how much of an increase were they looking at, and we come up with an increase for the elders from $600 to $800 for this year's heating assistance, and for community members from $400 to $500. The resolution was passed and carried by everyone in attendance. We are looking at deadline of, the application to start October 9th. As far, we're still working out those details, but that's the start date for applications. And they will be again in the 3 districts. And Cornwall residents who live in Cornwall will be able to apply for it provided they're in the city radius.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
any
you
questions?
very much. All right. So we'll move along to our first presentation of this evening. So back about 3 years ago, the Mohawk Council created the Akwesasne Youth Council. The council comprised of youth that we would dialogue with on a number of issues, and also to be able to use the youth council as a council or committee of the voice of the youth. So tonight we wanted to introduce a few of the members, or 6 members that we currently have, 5 members that we currently have on the committee. We have 3 of them here this evening, so I will turn it over to the youth that are here to just introduce themselves, and then I can introduce the members that are not here, at least I'll read their names.
My name is Akwesasne. I live and am born and raised from the district of Akwesasne. I am one of the newest members of the Youth Council, and I'm very excited to get started. My education, I graduated from SUNY Plattsburgh with my Bachelor of Science in Public Relations with a double minor in Journalism and Marketing. And I'm currently a social media editor for the Communications Unit.
My name is Shaila. I'm currently at UCSS. I hold a 2-year associate's degree in social work. I'm hoping once I land permanency to go for my bachelor's in social work. And I represent everybody.
My name is Mia Francis. I'm the representative for Granadigo. I have my Bachelor of Arts in Psychology with a minor in Criminal Justice. I currently work at AMBI as the Student Support Liaison, and yeah.
Thank you very much. So these 3 young ladies are 3 of our, 7 seats that are on our Akwesasne Youth Council. The other 3 members are Taylor Day, Liabunis Edwards, as well as Neopologos Thompson. And currently there's a vacancy on the Youth Council, which just happened in the last week. So there will be a call out to the community to fill the seat that is vacant, which is 1 member. And so we encourage all of you that may know youth that are interested in participating with the Youth Council to apply. The Youth Council actually selects down the members that will be coming on. And again, this committee is a committee that we dialogue with quite regularly to talk about current issues, to be able to also hear from the youth their perspective on current files, as well as to bring forward any concerns in which they may have or have heard from the youth in the community. So we actually meet 1 hour before the general meeting with the youth from 5 to 6 o'clock. We meet every month with them to have those dialogues. And we do have impromptu meetings with them throughout the month as well, when they are able to participate in different either events or committee meetings that occur throughout the month. So thank you very much, ladies, to the 3 of you for introducing yourself. Yes, Tim?
No, not one of the youth.
No?
Just to let everyone know, the other 2 youth, Lion Goonies and Taylor, are in attending school at Carleton University. And Dan Buenados Thompson is an FMTI getting his pilot's license.
Very nice. Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll move along to the first presentation by the PowerPoint. Again, these presentations are in your packages, so I will turn it over to a member of our staff in the Aboriginal Rights and Research Office who will go through the Dundee presentation for you.
I'm a researcher within the Aboriginal Rights and Research Office. I'm here to just give a quick overview of the presentations that we've been giving to community members the last couple of months regarding the Akwesasne Dundee specific claim. The information contained within this PowerPoint and all publications are for informing the Mohawk Akwesasne membership and is without prejudice to any and all future, current and future land claims. Akwesasne is referring to the place where the iron chain has been dragged. The most western part of Quebec was land always known to be reserved for the community. The earliest maps show land reserved for Indians and is approximately 20,000 acres of territory. Akwesasne is everything within the boundary line. The blue on this screen, pink in the packets, is the area of Dundee that is not reserved. Everything green is reserved, and then the hat shaded point within the district of Akwesasne, where the lands that were purchased back by the community from 1888 to 1953, when the funds at the time ran out. So historical background is the lands were basically leased out in the 1800s by the community to non-members that were settling within the areas. Over time, the leases were improper payments of leases. The Indian agent was not managing the funds properly, and community members started arguing that the land should be taken back from those leases that were not paid. Disagreements and disputes happened between the community and those lessees, and eventually the lessees argued to Canada that the land should be given over to them, and they had an inquiry in 1887. And from that inquiry, they talked to 150 Dundee residents, and they all said they should have full title. They only talked to 5 Akwesasne farmers and asked, are you even able to farm? So it was a one-sided inquiry. Ultimately, the recommendation was that the land should be surrendered and given free title over to those lease holders. The community protested. The Indian agent within February of 1888 called a community meeting, and he reported to Ottawa that the community had fully surrendered, and that the community would be awarded $50,000 for the land, and from there it was a done deal. The community has always protested from that point onward, when community members were fully aware as to what transpired, and we've been fighting to get those lands back into the community's hands, and from 1888 to 1953 used that to buy back piece by piece those lands that are now the most eastern part of Akwesasne. So that's the historical part. From 1981, the Band Council at the time filed the Dundee specific land claim to Canada. In the 80s, there were negotiations. They were on and off, and then finally in the 2000s, we were able to get the substantial negotiations. In 2012, they resolved, and in 2015, we had a settlement offer from Canada regarding compensation amount of $239,808,436 for compensation of everything that had happened within the claim, as well as the ability to purchase and add to the additions reserve process up to 18,282 acres of land with no time limit on acquiring those lands. The Arrow office has been having community discussion within this year, between February and May, and also again in, I believe, August. And we had community discussions, and it's been an ongoing community discussion as to what the community expects to be used for the funds and what to be expected to be used for the lands in that process. So those are ongoing discussions. Well, right now is the settlement offer and the agreement has been finalized, initialed, and brought forward to the community. The agreement is the terms and conditions of the offer from Canada. Canada is asking for a full release of all the damages that we've claimed within the specific claim itself. Within the offer, there's land selection areas that include areas in Quebec, Oregon, also areas within Ontario in which the community may select, purchase from willing buyer, willing seller, and have that go through the additions to reserve process, adding to the community's jurisdiction. Referendum has been called. The final settlement agreement document is shared with all members. A referendum date has been scheduled as Chief Referendum Officer Leona Benedict has been appointed, and she proclaimed that October 1st to December 7th will be the online voting period. On December 8th, there will be 3 polling stations, and one in each northern district and in 1 station in Hogansburg. And I believe it was just announced that those polling stations will be the 3 district recreation centers on that day, as well as the St. Regis Mohawk School in Hogan. So the ultimate question is the community. As a voter of the Mohawks of Akwesasne, that's a typo. Do you, A, approve the terms and conditions of the Jigglestisle-Dundee claim settlement initialed by the negotiators by the Mohawks of Akwesasne in Canada, which settles and releases the Jigglestisle-Dundee claim? And B, authorize and direct the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne to execute all documents and do everything necessary to give effect to the Jigglestisle-Dundee claim settlement agreement. Now that is the community's ability to look at the terms and conditions, the black and white, and be able to make an informed decision as to what whether the community accepts or rejects this offer from Canada. The simple language guide has been mailed out to the community today, and I believe some community members may have received it in their mailbox today. Between today and tomorrow, it should be out to the community, and as well as everything is accessible on the websites. So the voting options, voting yes would mean that the community accepts Canada's offer, accepting the compensation amount, and also the ability to regain up to 18,282 acres and to end the 130-year-old land claim. If the community chooses no, that's a rejection of Canada's offer. Option 1 is to go to the specific claims tribunal, which will hear the case and can only award up to $150 million for compensation. Or B, continue with federal court, and there's no guarantee of a win, and then it will be up to the judge to award any compensation amounts. In those 2 other options, there are no ability to regain land back to the community's hands. Referendum will not be entered. MCA will not enter into a settlement agreement unless it's been approved by the membership of the Mohawks of Akwesasne in a referendum vote. Threshold is 25% of the membership who have reached the age of 18 or older. Approximately 1,957 members need to participate in the vote for it to be considered valid, and ultimately out of that, the majority is the option that will be taken. Eligibility is all members of Mohawks of Akwesasne under the Akwesasne membership code is eligible to vote. 18 years of age on or before December 8th of 2018. To verify membership status, contact the Office of Audit Statistics. Contacts the Chief Referendum Officer Leona Benedict, Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, Grand Chief Abram Benedict and Council, the Aboriginal Rights and Research Office, as well as the Office of Audit Statistics. And information can be reached at the akwesasne.ca website, as well as the MCA-arro.ca website. All documentation is posted on there as well. And any questions regarding the referendum, where and how to vote, as Leona Benedict, any questions regarding to what the community expects from this outcome can be directed to council, and any technical questions regarding the history of the claim itself can be reached to the Arrow office. And with that, any questions?
Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, we didn't have the settlement agreement. I went to all your meetings, and we just handed this at the last general meeting. I guess one of my questions is, who was the chief negotiator for this settlement?
It was the last, I believe, 11 councils, and the most recent one is Grand Chief Abram Benedict.
Oh, so Abram's the one that was the chief negotiator on this agreement?
For
Every Grand Chief going backwards?
Or are there legalities behind it? Is there a legal team?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's not just Abram Benedict sitting there negotiating.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
There's probably at any given meeting, probably about 15 people there.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that question is because I see on here you have discontinuance of proceedings. Now, that T-22-1076 federal court case that's been going on since 1976, we have paid a lot of money for that file number. Now, in here, it says, could you explain to us what to abandon, dismiss, discontinuance of that proceedings in respect to the claim? Like, did they drop that claim, that T-22-1076, that federal agreement? Is that just...
Not from that claim is filed for the Seaway. And
That's right.
The discontinuance would be anything within the Dundee claim in relation to the Seaway component. But it does not stop the Seaway claim to continue with the rest of it.
Because the Seaway claim is still going on, right?
Yes, sir.
So basically, if this is settled, any language in the Seaway claim that says the lands of Dundee have been affected will be removed. That's what that means.
Okay, I have that question. And one more quick one. Now, this land is 18,000 acres when it comes back. Are you saying that it can either extend into reserve, enlarged Reserve 15, like the Mohawk portions, nice areas in Reserve 15? It could return back as one Reserve 15, right? And the Ontario portion, that'll all go back to 59? What are you saying in here about 6 other reserves, maximum 6 reserves? The maximum 3 separate reserves which are not contiguous to any existing reserve may be created pursuant to the settlement agreement within each of the Ontario selection or the Quebec selection for a total maximum of 6 separate reserves. What does that mean? Like, I thought the land, when you bought the land, was going back into to enlarge, staying as 15. Like the Quebec side of Federal Reserve 15, right? So is this when you get the land to extend Reserve 15, bigger portion, or are you looking into forming a new reserve?
From my understanding on the technical side is that if it's within the Quebec portion, whatever lands go through the entire additions reserve process will be inventoried as part of the communities within the Quebec reserve number system. Same thing with Ontario. So it's not making an ultimately brand new reserve, it's just lands that will be part of reserves 15 and 59.
It could. That gives us the flexibility if we wanted to create a new reserve up where there is no infrastructure way up on the North Shore. If you go back to the Ontario slide of the land selection area, say the community didn't want to attach it to Reserve 59. It gives us the ability to create a new reserve, but we don't have to. It's just an option.
Now that part of the Reserve Ontario, is that in the Nutfield?
Yep.
That's a
The
Nutfield.
Nutfield is
So
in
that's actually our land.
Yeah,
anyway.
and that's a totally separate claim. That doesn't affect this.
So who makes that decision if it stays, extends? We couldn't have it part of 59, right?
Yes,
So it's up to the community to decide or
Yes.
to form a new reserve.
yes. Once there's enough lands acquired in those areas, bring it to council, general meetings, and district meetings. And
It's almost a technicality though, Dave, because we now, like, theoretically have 2 pots of reserve land, 15 and 59 now, right? But it's all governed by one community government. So we could actually start another number reserve up in this area. That's what that says on there. Or we can add any of that land to the existing.
That's just what I said, but the thing is that people need to understand what this agreement means.
Well, at some,
I mean,
before
they vote.
at some point, there may be a benefit to having a reserve, I don't know what the number would be, but X number reserve, I'll say pass along soup type thing. There may be a benefit to having a separate reserve. But I mean, it's not in the foreseeable that that's what we want to do. We want to add to the existing. It's really a technicality.
I don't think so.
Well, it's like a band number, right? At one point, your children went under your band number. Now everybody gets their own band number. It's similar to
Well,
that.
it's a deal made.
You're still
between
a
the
number
government
at
and
the end of the day.
Gabriel, you have to make a deal with the Minister of Indian Affairs to do this, to form a new reserve. There's a lot of steps to it. What I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to understand in this agreement what that means.
What I'm trying to make it clear is that even if we went to another reserve number, it doesn't mean there's going to be another band operating that reserve. It's still part of Akwesasne. So we will not have separate reserves that have governing bodies over them. We'll still be part of that system.
Because that should stay 59, that's our land anyway. They want to give us back the Nutfield tract, which is ours anyway. You know, that's what I'm saying, this negotiation, some of this stuff is garbage.
Yeah. Any questions on this presentation? Yes.
On your water straight from where you're going back to, are we fighting for the waters there too? Like say digging all over there, fish or can, or like we do right here? It's our waters. Is it going to be our waters up that way too?
Yeah, the rights that we have now would be the same rights that would be there as well.
So I can walk on a boat up to Dundee and harassed by the police and whatnot.
Well, we already assert that it is our territory. We have those territorial rights already, with especially in respect to fishing and use of the water. But the rights that we have as part of a reserve would be the same, would be transferable to there as well. Any other questions? Okay, if none so noted, thank you very much, Philip, and thank you for your questions as well. Okay, so we'll now turn to Mr. Darrow, who's here on behalf of the Adoptee Program to provide you with an update from them. Just before we do proceed, for those of you that weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, we did initially have the proposed natural gas expansion onto the Winoga presentation scheduled, but that has been since removed, and we'll make an announcement at the next general meeting with respect to that. So there's no presentation on that tonight. So
Well, I want to talk about the natural gas expansion.
Switch your
Thank you for
channel.
that.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay. We had an interesting negotiation session 2 weeks ago. And one of the areas that we discussed, of course, was, okay, what are we giving up with this self-government agreement? But more than that, we're saying, we're not giving up anything. But what are we protecting? Chief Vince Thompson raised the question with us, and we said, you know what? I think we better put something together on what the protections that we have within the agreement. And it's really important because when you look at the handout, you'll see there are a lot of areas that we are protecting, and we're protecting them. I have to really point out that we're dealing with Canada. Not just one minister of CERNA, Department of Indigenous Affairs, we're dealing with Canada. The negotiators from Canada. So when we meet with them, we're talking about a new agreement which is going to define a new relationship with Canada. Not like the one we have under the Indian Act. The Indian Act is a piece of antiquated legislation that was put on us with all 600 First Nations in Canada for Canadians. They wanted land. They wanted the resources. They wanted areas that they say that they can control, but those poor Indians, they have it. Let's put them on these little tracts of land, 15, 59 for us. Let's sign treaties with them out west. Let's put legislation in place if they wanted to enfranchise, a Civilization Act, a Lands Act. These all came out of the Indian Act compilation of all those acts in the 1800s to control us. We had Indian agents living right over here. Growing up here, I knew what the Indian agent's house was. Next door was the RCMP. Next door to that was the medical clinic. Next door to that was a teacher's. They're the only houses on the whole community that had running water. They had electricity. Somebody asked me one time, would your grandparents really want to have these agreements, this new relationship? And I say, you're darn right they would. Because they remember. The roads we had were all dirt. This here used to be a pasture. There's a nice beach over here where we used to swim. That had to change. And you have to change, and I have to maybe just explain how monies come down from Canada, from Parliament each year. The money comes down from Parliament, they vote on it. It's separated to all the different departments, transportation, health, Indian Affairs, or CERC, or whatever it is. That's how the money goes to all 36, 40 different departments, crown corporations. They take that piece of pie. Department of Indigenous Services takes the funds and they turn it over to a regional office in Toronto for us, 15 and 59. With the 100 another 30 other First Nations in Ontario, that pie becomes that limited. One pot. What this does is that the self-governing First Nations, West Bay, Powassan, Sioux Valley, they're saying, wait a minute, the Yukon, we want a better operation. We want a better funding regime. We want our money to come from Parliament, which this agreement will do so. Because if you have the money coming from Parliament, it's not put into that 130 pot with other First Nations in Ontario. It comes right off the top. Every 5 years they review their chapter. That's where what they call the fiduciary responsibility will come in. Canada is obligated to continue funding us. They will continue funding us so that we will have the resources to manage our own affairs, to have the jurisdiction to have our own laws, to have the jurisdiction to develop our own regulations and how we want to help the people of Akwesasne. It's really inducive on people to look at that and say, wow, when it comes to a vote, we want you to come to vote. Understand what you're voting for, like Dundee, get all the facts, make up your mind, and vote. Whether you vote yay or nay, yes or no, get out and vote. That's a right that we have. Now in here, I'm just going to go through some of the protections. Recognition of Aboriginal title and treaty rights. The Akwesasne Agreement and federal legislation approving the agreement will not be construed to abolish, restrict, deny, or affect Aboriginal or treaty rights of the Mohawks of Akwesasne and its members. Mohawks of Akwesasne and its members will continue to be recognized as Aboriginal peoples and have their rights under Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982, including Aboriginal title, jurisdiction based on Aboriginal title, recognized and affirmed. It's an administrative agreement. We're establishing the relationship that's administrative, that we will handle our own affairs. Not the Minister of Indian Affairs that has to approve estates, that has to approve going back way. We had a permit system where to leave the reserve, you had to sign a permit, get permission. These things were in law, and they've had many amendments to the Indian Act. The biggest one, of course, is Bill C-31, which brought back a lot of our people. We still feel the pains of that, because I have relatives. You're not supposed to mention names, right? Fish worker. Married my cousin Nancy. She was taken off the rolls. Fish worms from the American side of the reserve. Now, why is that? But there were more. There were people who were ostracized, women who were ostracized, but they married a white man. Even though they came back to the community under Bill C-31, they still felt the pain of being denied, of being looked upon by their own family as you marry somebody outside. That has to change, and so that's why we're looking at this Indian Act to say those rules and regulations for all of the 2020 reserves in Canada have to change. We have to decide our own fate. Through the agreements, Canada will acknowledge the Mohawks of Akwesasne have implemented aspects of their inherent right to self-government recognized as an Aboriginal right under Section 35 of the Constitution Act. Fiduciary responsibility, that's the obligation of funds that are coming to us. I always look at it from a personal perspective to say, they owe us rent. They owe us back rent for underfunded, unfunded programs that we're supposed to deliver on behalf of the Minister of Indian Affairs, who acts as a Canadian. That's what the fiduciary responsibility is, that they are obligated to continue funding us. We will have continued rights and benefits. We'll be eligible to participate and benefit from other federal programs and services. We will also continue to be entitled to the same rights and benefits of Canadian citizens or permanent residents of Canada. My voice is changing here. I think I'm Justice Kavanaugh, or whatever his name is. But anyways, the agreement will not restrict the Mohawk, maybe it's puberty. The agreement will not restrict the Mohawk participation in inherent right of self-government, the Guyana-Haga Mohawk Nation level, or at the level of the Haudenosaunee Iroquois Confederacy. Land claims, we will not be, hey. The agreements will not limit or restrict the rights of Mohawks of Akwesasne concerning the land claims in court through government claims process or other forms. There's other land claims that we're looking at. We talked about the Nutfield tract. We're talking about the Seaway claim. All of those things will still, they're outside of this agreement. We still have the right to do it. Preservation of interest in Akwesasne reserve lands. Akwesasne lands will remain federal lands if the reserves held for the use and benefit of the Mohawks of Akwesasne. Existing interest in Akwesasne land will continue to have effect. Oh, God bless you. Any question you have, get a hold of Kelby, extension 3193. She has all the answers. Thank you, Kelby. Oh. God bless you. Tax exemption. Protection of property procedure. 87 of the Indian Act, tax exemption, sections 29, 89, and 90, protection of lands and property procedure, will continue to apply. Even if they got rid of the Indian Act, which they have said they might, if they got rid of it today, those tax exemptions we'll have in the agreement, the wording, the spirit of those things will remain in the agreement. So if they got rid of it, it's in our agreement. And if it's passed by Parliament, it becomes law. Liability. We will hold Canada's feet to the fire because they remain liable for errors, mismanagement, including mismanagement of Akwesasne lands prior to the coming into force of the agreement. It would also contain an implementation plan. Because right now in our sectoral agreement, we have environment, we have wills in the state, we have education, we have lands, all of those things. But all the other departments, which we have to talk to with the provinces under a multi-jurisdiction process, those things will come into it. That's the implementation. As I said earlier, there's unfunded programs and underfunded programs. We have to develop and negotiate a better funding arrangement with Canada with additional dollars. The agreement will reflect an ongoing government-to-government relationship that is based on a spirit of peace, respect, and friendship. How's that, Rob? Any questions? Dave, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to know how, I see you've got section 87 of the Indian tax exemption, you know.
Right.
The personal property of an Indian or land situated on reserve is exempt from taxation.
That's right.
Okay, section 88, when you go into 88, talks about provincial authority of general application.
Right.
Now, with that provincial authority in your nation building process, where does 88 fit in? Because I see that a lot of things are turning provincial on the reserve.
That's right.
So if it's turning provincial, where are we headed as far as 88 fits into your so-called,
We're already exercising Section 88 through the business, licensing of businesses and that sort of thing, so we're in it. But we have to decide exactly what do we mean by what you're raising right now, is what parts of 88 do we want to keep? And also, if we are going to be talking to the provinces, we need to set up that table to talk to the province on that. If we say it should exclude provincial tax, municipal tax, it should say so. But those are good points, and I think that that's where we have to start talking amongst ourselves internally, seeing how that really is going to affect us. It's a good point.
And another question is, how is Canada going to be held liable with a certificate of possession? We've discussed this before.
Yeah.
But they can't get off the hook on it.
That's right.
I mean, you can't move forward in the final agreement and say, okay, we're going to have governance, we're going to have a sectorial agreement, land sectorial agreement, but yet have all these discrepancies, mismanagement of Canada.
They won't be in the agreement. It's like what we have right now with the estates problem. When the minister handled the estates question for Akwesasne, there were a lot of estates issues. So what we did was we signed an MOU with them, and then we have hired an estates officer in OBS to clear up that. That will remain a fact, that Canada has to live up to that. We're also looking at the lands question, where they made errors in the lands. That has to be outside the agreement. Say, you're still obligated to correct those, and you have to correct them. It's not going to be put into the agreement to say that everything is fine and we're just going to sign a waiver. No. It's more than that. We have to identify each one of those. We're also talking about right now about surveying, the different surveys that have to be done that Canada was responsible for. We call that undivided interest. That has to be looked at too. And Canada is sitting at the table saying, well, yeah, we're right. We have to do that. So that's where we bring them to the table and talk about these things and how they're going to correct it. It's up to them to correct it, not up to us.
So after 15 years of this self-government, this program you've been working on, like, how much longer do you figure before you get to the final agreement?
From a personal perspective, I hope that we would have something in maybe in a 2.5-year period that we would be coming to a vote. And even if coming to the vote, we're also looking at a land code, a land law, and a governance code. That's internal to us. That has to be part of it. Any one of those could be done separately on an education process and a ratification vote. We don't know what the ratification threshold is. It could be the same as what you're doing with Dundee. But personally, I'm getting old. I like to see it in my lifetime that we would come to a vote anyway. It's funny that you're one of the youngest members of the staff and you're talking about the past. I'm one of the oldest and I'm talking about the future.
So if we're headed into provincial authority,
We're not.
that's
Not at
what
all.
you just said. You
No.
said everything's going provincial.
No, it isn't. He said that. I said, we're going federally. This is with Canada.
Okay.
How Canada wants to deal with the provinces, that's up to Canada. We're not accepting the provincial part of it. We need to sit down and say, okay, multi-jurisdiction, boom, where is it? Good case in point. Additions to reserves. When are we going to get the islands from the OPG stuff? It takes a long time. You know why it's being held up? Because it's third-party interests. The province, municipalities, they have to agree to it. We want that in there. If we go with this and we go to Dundee or whatever to try to get land, that's going to be our decision, our dealings with the federal government. Because it's still federal land that we have.
Long term, is that going to affect our territory?
I hope it does.
The Haudenosaunee territory is huge.
The Haudenosaunee territory was probably going right up to Ottawa, probably a large part of Quebec, all of New York State, even probably down to the Cherokees.
All the way down to...
So that's Haudenosaunee territory at one time. Let's start to reclaim it. Let's start thinking about those things and how we can get all of that back for our territory as part of the Haudenosaunee. I think this is a really important aspect, and it's really, from my point of view, it's very exciting to be able to think in that manner.
Not be able to travel anywhere in Haudenosaunee territory.
Sure. Well, we do now.
Yeah, but now
We still have the border.
yeah. They're throwing all their laws at us, and nobody here would fight against it. If they hold our people for moose hunters, who went and represented the moose hunters?
Isn't there an agreement?
Nobody.
That today? Don't we have mutual agreements?
Different agreement.
Yeah, we have different agreements with other.
But nobody went.
I have no idea. Good
What I'm saying, everybody here is tunnel vision. Gotta look and open your mind bigger than what you're really looking at.
Hear that, everybody? We've got to open our minds. We can't think in a tunnel vision. And that's what we're trying to do, is open our minds. And looking at the possibility of what the future could hold for us. It's a different way of thinking than having somebody say, oh, you're violating Section 30 of the Indian Act. It's got to change, and it will change if we agree to what we're doing right now. So we'll see. Time will tell, Rob.
Any other questions on Peter's presentation? Okay.
Natural pipe. No.
Thank you very much, Peter, for staying back and doing your presentation. Very powerful. By the way, it's orange shirt tomorrow, and just so you know. So take that one nowhere. Good. All right. So we again, as we had reported at the beginning of the meeting, the proposed natural gas line expansion presentation has been removed. So we will move on to the update from council on the cannabis law development. Is somebody speaking to that over here? Or is it me? So, as you may or may not know, the federal government's legislation on the legalization of cannabis comes into effect on October 17th of this year. We have had commissioned a survey about 6 months ago, thereabouts, on gauging the community on their thoughts and perspective with respect to cannabis and the distribution of it. Also covered some minimum ages and whether or not, the fundamental question was whether or not the Mohawk Council should enact legislation to be able to regulate the sale and distribution of cannabis. So we do know that the federal legislation is coming in place on October 17th. We are in the process right now of enacting an interim cannabis regulation that will be put in place until the fulsome law can be developed. After, we expect within the next couple of weeks, we will have that interim cannabis regulations put in place, which will identify a process if individuals want to apply to open a store within the territory to sell cannabis. They'll have to apply under these interim regulations. We will be directing the Legislative Commission to develop a law, an Akwesasne cannabis law, which that work will be undertaken, which will include a fulsome engagement session with the community and then lead to ratification of our own Akwesasne cannabis law, using the process in which we develop and enact laws now. So that's where we are right now with respect to with the development of regulations for the sale and distribution of cannabis and the development of a full law that will govern sale and distribution of cannabis. Yes?
I haven't heard, when you had the survey,
Yeah.
what was the answers? I haven't heard it, and like for myself, I voted to have it, but I voted for medical.
Yeah.
And to be really controlled in drugstore. I didn't vote for this, everybody to have a thing all over the place. And that's what I'm starting to see. And that's not right.
Yeah. So one of the big question that was asked during the survey, which we did present at a general meeting, it was presented here at a general meeting by the consultants that did it, that they did want the Mohawk Council to regulate the sale of cannabis. Now, whether or not it was specific to medical or recreational, I don't recall it. If there's some member of council here that can recall, I would appreciate it, but I don't recall the fact.
Yeah. Well, the survey that was done, in that survey, determined that the community is more or less well with doing recreational or cannabis medicinal. Yes, the results of the survey. And if there's any questions more about the survey, we can redistribute that at the next general meeting, just to re-educate everybody on the results of that survey. So everybody will have a bigger picture on why we're moving ahead with legislation, regulations, and permitting and whatnot.
Yeah, who's going to enforce this law?
Part of the law development would be enforcement officers that would enforce the law as well.
The compliance officers?
Enforcement officers.
Enforcement? You
Yeah.
have another team? Not the Mohawk Police, right?
No. Well, depending though. I take that back because there are still will be quantities of cannabis that's illegal still under the Controlled Substance Act. So those areas will be prosecuted by the police.
Is there anything in place, Abram, as far as Federal Reserve goes? Any regulations, once they pass this, that was set forth by the Canadian government? Like the Liberal government, when they said, okay, we're going to legalize on October 17th, recreational right across Canada. Was there anything set in stone to say, okay, we also have regulations for Indian Reserve? Or is that just old?
No, at this point there hasn't been, no.
Is that?
Right now there's not. No. Back in the back? Yeah, yes. You back. Yeah.
Okay, on this survey, my question right away is, did all the young people vote yes for this, and the elders in between didn't want it to be recreational, we wanted it medical? How would you know who's voting more on what side or whatever?
Pat, just a comment, sorry, just a comment on that. It was astonishing to me also when we got the survey results back. The majority of the people that voted in favor of recreational and medicinal marijuana were between the ages of 35 to 50. But the youth participants were, I would say, 20%, and then another 20% at the 55 and over. So the majority was the 35 to 50 years of age that participated, and they were all the ones that were agreeing to have medicinal and I don't remember all, provided that it be regulated.
So just some quick numbers on that. There was 590 respondents from the survey, and of the 590, 74% believe that the Mohawk Council should allow for recreational use of cannabis, with almost 66% supporting the sale of recreational cannabis in Akwesasne, and then 60% of the respondents support either sale by privately owned or an MCA business. So we're only using the survey results as an indicator of where we should start developing, right? So as you know, through the law enactment process, there's also a huge community consultation process that occurs. So that will still continue to happen with this law. Yes,
Just for clarity, medical marijuana has been legal for a few years now. The survey was strictly on recreational cannabis. And your thoughts and your feelings on just a clarity.
Connie, I was in Tyantanaga, there's 52 dispensaries there right now. And they don't care what anybody says, they just do it for now. So I'm just wondering if there'll be a ripple effect here that people just, they can do it, why can't we? We don't need your regulations, we just open.
Well, we're trying to avoid that ripple effect because Tyantanaga has, as soon as there was even talk of it becoming legal, their shops were going out. October 17th isn't even here yet. So we're hoping that, though we're a little bit behind the eight ball here, I guess we're going to say, for lack of better words, we're hoping that we're going to have support from the community based on the survey that was taken, that they want a law and regulations, and this will be an interim regulation until we can sit down and do a full, thorough consultation with the community on it. and that the law reflects what they want.
Any other comments, questions? Yes?
Well, don't we already have a store on the island? And where are you looking into it?
So the Mohawk police have attended the sites that have been either advertised or been reported as selling. And the one specifically that you mentioned sells CBD products. And there's a certain level of CBD that is illegal, and there's a certain level that's legal. And the products that are there are the legal products. So it's not illegal to sell CBD. It's just how much of the of CBD is in the product. Yes.
So the survey that you're talking about, people are allowed to vote more than once. So the 500 means whatever you mentioned. Some people are able to vote more than once.
Yeah.
That's not.
It's used, but it's not binding, and it's used as an indicator, right? So if the resounding result said, no way, ban it, then we would be moving towards legislation that says no way, ban it. But the indicator says that the community is comfortable with having regulations that regulate the sales. So we're only using it as an indicator, it's not binding, the results. Because recognizing that, it's a survey, it's not a referendum.
It's just a comment that also is the survey company that came in and did the survey identified those areas for us, and they also filtered them out. They took them right out of the survey so that it didn't affect the survey results. And they were pretty stringent on how they did it, and they told us how they were doing it. If somebody used the website more than twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, it was even admitted by a community member that those 10 surveys were completely wiped right out. The results were completely wiped out.
Go ahead.
If it's just an indicator, then why do you keep bringing it up at the survey? And then you got those 2 ladies from, I don't know where they were from. They came and did a presentation at a general meeting. They talked French, you don't even understand half of what they were saying to start with. So people that don't speak French. What did we get out of that?
They were speaking English when they were here.
Yeah, but not for people to understand. That would be like we stand up there speaking Mohawk. How many people in there would understand? Right?
Yeah. Well, we had to start somewhere, and that's why the survey was commissioned.
But that's the only time you cannot make people do a survey and come to a presentation.
The reason why they were hired is because they had experience in doing surveys specifically around cannabis and had an idea of what kind of questions should be asked. Because otherwise, we could go into it questions that either slated or biased and that may not capture exactly where we want to go. That's why we hired them to help. Any other questions on the cannabis discussion? Yes.
So you said the law isn't like set to reservations based on Ontario and Quebec, because I've seen they have limits for how much you can grow. Considering that, so you're saying we will make our own law here on the reservation?
Yeah.
And would that, from what they set in the government, would that be like a minimum, or a max, and we can't go over it? Or are we allowed to make our entirely own law?
We would use the federal law as the kind of the minimum standard as to what our community law looks like. Because there are certain areas that the federal government has rolled out on the cannabis front, and then there are certain areas that the provinces are responsible for. So we would be at that, filling that gap of where the provinces would say this is how it's going to work, we'll say this is how it's going to work.
Have you guys ever checked into different reservations and how they do it, like California?
We have, I believe, I think we have once or twice, but I mean, we haven't gone super comprehensive on it. But the problem is that in Canada, everybody is moving really quickly to respond, right? We're about 20 days away from the law coming law. And so we're really trying to catch up and make sure. One of the reasons why we're going to have an interim in place is to stop kind of what was just described as the Tandanega effect, where there's all kinds of little shops happening. Because now there is something in place, because if there's nothing in place, people will do it and say, well, you have no rules, you know, it doesn't say you can't do it, so I might do it.
Are they allowed to do that on 17th now?
No, because we will have some interim regulations in place that will say you have to follow this process to be authorized to do. Yes.
And just to add to that too, we're also working with on the law, we're working on it too, so that they don't have any situations where they also. And we don't necessarily have to follow what California is doing, because each person's territory is unique in their own way. So we have to make it that fits our people to keep it in the city and regulations.
Iceland as an example, but
Yeah, we get that.
what is Gunawag is, are they going for it? Are they making stores?
Right now, they're in the same position as us. There's still legislation on regulations and whatnot, and I foresee that after it's completed, just like us, that there will be allowance to have it. It's got to be regulated, permitted.
Yes.
Is this guideline, is this going to be made into a bylaw here? It's 20 days. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to have time to do it, put anything in the regulation, because you have to go to the public.
No, we'll pass interim regulations, and then we will move towards the legislative commission developing a fulsome law, which will be enacted under the law enactment regulations. But will not be a bylaw. The end product. We don't just stop. We stopped making bylaws a long time ago.
You still have to go to the community for it.
Yeah, for the law, yes, fine.
Three of those.
Hmm?
3 meetings, right?
Yeah, there's a process that needs to be followed
Yeah.
for the development. Yeah. Okay, all right, so we'll move along. We have business from the floor. Was there any items that any member of the community wishes to raise with council for discussion or of discussion? Go ahead.
What was your, I was away if you were in Rama, speak to seniors,
Yeah,
and you had a meeting on Monday and Tuesday.
yeah.
Monday was what?
Was the presentation on the proposed gas line expansion, and Tuesday was the district meeting.
Well, with the district meeting, yeah, I wasn't here, but do you want people going to your meeting or not?
For Tuesday?
We knew you were in Brahma.
I will.
No, it just happened because of, scheduling. Yes, Eddie. I want you there, Pat. No, it was just the scheduling, and we needed to have our meeting, so it landed on Tuesday, and that's just the way it happened. Next month, it'll go back to Monday.
Monday, and with the sign at the door, sign at the road, sign at the road.
It'll go back on Tuesday next month, so I'll let you know.
Yes, Pat, we'll put a sign in the road.
Monday's a holiday.
Holiday on Monday. I'll text you.
Better stay home, Pat. Any other business from the floor this evening? I think, yeah.
Has there been anywhere if we can get any sessions on the pipeline concerning like clean energy or something besides Enbridge?
Yeah, so we have posted 2 presentations thus far on the proposed expansion, and one of the things that's overly resounding is that people want something else as alternative energy or conservation, energy conservation. So we will be looking at, well, we'll continue to look at what those options are, including some of the studies that have already been done. One of the things that we talked about was to have one electrical grid for the entire community, because we have a lot of electricity that's locally, that's cheaper, i.e. Quebec. So we will be bringing some of those studies back out. In fact, I think we should probably bring it out next general meeting and have a conversation about what those studies say. A lot of the times when we talk about these alternative energy or green energy, it's the cost that's the problem, right? So we do know that we'll be coming into potentially some settlement money, which may be an option to be able to look at now that we may have some flexibility. So we can we'll start having those conversations. We've heard lots of feedback on that, and we're taking that. Anybody else? Yes.
The way I understand it, the direction we're headed within 2 years, we would like to have reserve taxation. Is that what you're saying?
We're keeping 87, no taxation on reserve.
But for the land secretarial, for here, you're saying the outside can't tax us.
That's right.
Okay. But what you just said, internally,
If that's the way that people want to go, it's up to the people.
so that's what I want to be clear on.
That's right.
What road are we heading? Are we heading into that or not?
There's no appetite from this council, I can assure you, to tax on it.
That's right.
So I mean, and if we were to go into a place where we're taxing our own people, it'd have to be done by a law, right?
That's right.
And who approved the law? The community. So council can't arbitrarily say everybody's going to pay a tax because we don't have that authority. It has to be law driven. And I can tell you that we're not looking in any way, shape, or form to tax any of our people.
That's right.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
Well, April, we have to admit at one time it was in place. The thought was there. Because when you had the financial administration law, which was supposed to be approved by the management board in British Columbia, now under that financial management board, there was also a tax commission, which they eliminated.
Yeah.
At one time, the intention of the financial administration law, your First Nation Management Act, was based on reserve property taxation. And we argued that. Now they took it out, you're saying, no, we have no intention, but at one time,
Well,
it
it
was an
wasn't,
intention.
wasn't the intention of the council then either to tax the people.
Well,
There
they
may
were
have
following,
been-
wait a minute, you guys went to West Bank. West Bank passed bylaw 83 of the Indian Act, they enforced it, didn't they? They all agreed that we'll pay taxes. We'll move over here, let the white people take over the reserve, we'll collect the taxes.
There's provisions in the Indian Act now to tax our own people. So the language that you're referencing exists now in the Indian Act.
That's what I'm saying, if the people can decide, through 83 of the Indian Act, to decide, yeah, it's time to pay taxes.
That's right.
They've got over 10,000 people living in West Bank who are non-native. They're taxed.
They're taxed.
The people who live on the reserve, about 800, they're not taxed.
They're not taxed,
That's
but their
right.
land is gone.
But, well, they're leasing their land,
They're
they still
leasing
have. But they're leasing it. That's a taxation that they decided for the non-native businesses and people who live there. They're being taxed. But not the people themselves.
Well, all I have to say is I was watching APTN and what's her name, they split the Department of Indigenous Affairs.
That's right.
Jane Philpott was in place. And Todd Lamoureux, he's one of the reporters, asked her, said, you guys want self-government. So how are you going to be self-sufficient? How are you going to take care of yourself? And she said, that's why I'm trying to educate band council on how to tax their citizens.
Well,
That's exactly what she said. So there's something on the universal cap.
Well, there's got to be some reason by splitting. And am I talking out of turn here?
Oh, you're fine.
By splitting the departments, we don't know what the motive was.
Right.
You know, because if you look at the white paper of '69, they were trying to eliminate Indian affairs. One of the recommendations that came from RCAP was to eliminate Indian affairs. They're keeping Crown Corporation separate, but they produce this new department. Maybe that's the whole idea, is moving outside, getting rid of that department eventually, that everybody will be under a self-government agreement. I don't know, but it could be a motive.
That's exactly.
So I think that's, we have to be aware of that.
Anything else? Okay, so I have two resolutions that I need to read for the record. First one is accepting the general meeting minutes. To accept the general meeting minutes dated August 30th, 2018. Could I have a motion, please? Moved by Julie, seconded by Connie. Discussion on the resolution? Question has been called on the resolution. All in favor of the resolution? Any against the resolution? None against? Carried. So the next resolution I have is to accept the results of the petition which was presented at the last general meeting. 4 standard clauses, and whereas general elections for 3-year terms for 2018 2021 for the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne were held on June 30th, 2018 in accordance with the Akwesasne election law. And whereas Dennis Shawsey was declared duly elected as a district chief for the District of Gawanoga for a 3-year term in June 2018 general elections, having received 131 votes according to the June 2018 general elections official voting results. And whereas District Chief Dennis Shawsey took his oath of office on July 13, 2018, being his term of office. And whereas on August 30, 2018, a petition for removal of Gawanoga District Chief Dennis Shawsey was delivered to council at a duly convened general meeting in accordance with subsection 16.2 of the Akwesasne election law as adopted by MCA 2005-2006-192. And whereas subsection 162A of the Akwesasne election law requires that a petition requesting the removal of district chief be signed by an equal number of votes plus 1 from the official total number of votes that district chief received on election day. And whereas on August 31st, 2018, the Chief Electoral Officer, Leona Bennett, examined each signature on the petition for the removal of Gawanoga District Chief Dennis Shawsey in accordance with the Akwesasne election law 16.3 and reports as follows. Total number signed 195. Members registered eligible voters 181. Members not on the voters list 13, and ineligible could not identify 1. And whereas the verification process established that 181 eligible voters signed the petition more than the minimum number of the 131 plus 132 votes required to remove Dennis Shawsey as the Gawanoga District Chief as required under subsection 16.5 of the Akwesasne election law. And whereas the petition for the removal of Gawanoga District Chief has been signed by the minimum number of eligible voters as required under subsection 16.2a of the Akwesasne election law, making the petition valid in accordance with subsection 16.5. And whereas subsection 16.5 requires that council shall declare a member or chief removed in order of by-election for that position. And whereas a general meeting of council has been duly convened today, September 27, 2018, now therefore be resolved that in accordance with 16.5 of the Akwesasne election law, Dennis Shawsey is hereby removed from the office as Gawanoga District Chief, effective to the date of the declaration by council. And be it further resolved that a by-election is to be held within 90 days in the District of Gawanoga for the position of 1 district chief in accordance with the Akwesasne election law. And be it finally resolved that the procedure initiated under 16 of the Akwesasne election law regarding the petition delivered and received by council on August 30, 2018 has been administered by all responsible parties, and the petition having been duly received, verified, and brought to the community at the duly convened general meeting for action is now complete. Could I have a mover to move the resolution, please? Moved by Connie, second by Julie. Is there discussion on the resolution? Question has been called on the resolution. All in favor of the resolution? Any against the resolution? The resolution is carried. Okay. So that part of the meeting is now complete. We do have announcements that we wish to make. The next district meetings are on October 9th at the Akwesasne Recreation, October 9th at the Gawanoga Recreation, and here at the Naga October 15th. Our next general meeting will be held October 25th, 6 p.m. in the Akwesasne District. I want to thank all of you for coming out to our general meeting of September 27th. Could I have a mover to adjourn the meeting? Tim and Joel, all in favor?